My name is Beverly C. Foster. I was born and raised in Wallaceville, the community of Chickamauga, Georgia, here in Walker County, Georgia. I am the museum director of the Walker County African American Museum and Multicultural Center. I am the president and founder of the Walker County African American Historical and Alumni Association, Incorporated. The Walker County African American Museum and Multicultural Center came about through some complex reasoning. When we look around Walker County, we see multiple statues of Confederate soldiers and Confederate heroes and all kind of interpretive signs of the Civil War, and antebellum homes like the March House, the Shaw House, Gordon Lee Home Place, as my mother would call it. And they all predicted us as the downtrodden, enslaved people. But that only lasted for 32 years. Walker County was organized in 1833, and the Civil War was over with in 1865. But the county concentrates on those few years in their environmental expression and in their history telling of Walker County. So we asked the city of Lafayette if we could place a monument in the Joe Stock Park area to honor the African Americans in Walker Counties, some of their accomplishments beyond the enslavement years, what we had done in the past 150 or 160 years or so, how we had advanced. So people wouldn't always just think of us as Appalachian enslaved people. And at that time, they said they had already created the rule that they weren't going to put any more monuments in the Joe Stock Park. So what they did is they gave us a block off West Villanelle, which is right downtown, and it had a car wash on it. They demoed the car wash. We planted some grass there. We got Roper to make a sign showing how much money we need to raise. And they said, you can develop this land into a memorial park for African Americans. And so we went to the city council after I wrote up proposals and sent it to all of them, let them read it. And we had a unanimous vote that we would be able to develop that area into a memorial park. And we're gonna call it the African American Memorial and Unity Park. And so as we begin to get people to help us to develop it, we talked to the engineers at the University of Georgia, and we talked to monument companies, and we talked to engineers who offer their services in kind, and we talked to surveyors. They offer their service in kind. You know, everybody was offering everything for free. And then one gentleman said, how you gonna have a memorial park about African Americans, you ain't got no museum? And I said, they said there's a companion, like the March House is with Joe Stock. All that goes together. And this could be the historical area of the county seat. So we knew this building was here, and it was used basically for storage, and it was full of mold. It had one time been along John Silver's. It was full of mold. It was just a mess. And I remember one lady looked in who was going to offer us a grant, a very large grant to develop stuff. She said, Beverly, you sure you want this building? I said, yeah, it's right here on Main Street, and we'd be with the other historical things. Because when we went to the county, one of the county lawyers offered us buildings that were in the back. And we said, you always put our history and put us in the back. I said, that's just ensuring that we'll fail. Who'll know we back there? We want something on Main Street where everybody else is, so people know we're here. So with that explanation in our proposals, we had the 5 county commissioners, 4 district and 1 CEO. They voted unanimously to let this building, they own this building, the county owned this building, to let us develop it into a museum, the Walker County African American Museum and Multicultural Center. Now, it was in a mess. There was There was BB gun holes in the window, and the water heater didn't work. It was a mess. But without me knowing it, that they were planning to do this. And I told them I had a grant that I had to use by a certain date, so I've got to get up that first exhibit by a certain date. They came in here and gutted the whole thing. And they put an AD accessible bathroom in. They put a new heating and air conditioning system in. They put an alarm system. They put in internet. They put a telephone in. They just upgraded it totally. And they put a new water heater in system and made it presentable, so that when people come to see the museum, they would see something that was nice. And as we developed our exhibits. And so that worked out fine. And that, we've been in operation for 4 years. This will be our 4th year. And we use the museum not to highlight enslavement, because the Marsh House does that, because the Marsh House, of course, you know, is an antebellum home, and the gentleman who owned it had slaves, both here in Lafayette and in other areas around the county and in Chattooga County. And of course, we have a slave house over there. And we wanted this area to highlight our accomplishments that we've made since then. You know, like we got an international opera star. We got a gentleman that you met that sings with the Gaither Brothers. We got a lady who was the first woman in charge of a ROTC program and aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech. We got all kind of people who done very accomplishing. We got a gentleman who worked for both President Clinton and the first President George Bush. We have a gentleman who was star in the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl ring. So we wanted people to understand, yeah, we're a little rural county, but and there's few of us, but we're doing some things to make our county proud of us. As we celebrate the 100th year of commemorating Black History Month, that the anniversary is this year, what Black History Month means to me is that African Americans were the first cultural group to have a month or a week. We started out with a week to celebrate our legacy and heritage. And what it means to me today at this point in my life is that it means a lot, because it's a time when people focus in depth on what African Americans have contributed to the United States and to the world. So I find that it is very important to me. Of course, you know, since I work in an African American Museum and Cultural Center, that, you know, I celebrate Black history 24/7, 365. So lots of times I will not have a special event in Black History Month. I'll usually do my event in January or March, because Black History Month is so full of things that it gets a little overwhelming. And I get invited to 3 or 4 things a week to speak or to be there or whatever. So I try to split mine up into a different month, because I do feel it's important and we should do something. And I think we should be very proud that we led the way for Asian History Month, Native American History Month, Women History Month. We led the way for all those months because we were the first to start it, and we started it exactly 100 years ago this year. How has African American culture influenced me as a person? I grew up in a home with a Black father and a Black mother. They taught me the basics of being a Black person. And when you said the basics of Black person, what do you mean? We had 9 children, and Daddy had a 3rd or 6th grade education, and Mama had 11th grade education. She didn't get to finish her 12th year. But they taught us that to get very well educated, go to college. With those educations, Mama and Daddy sent us to complete degrees at Howard University, Morris Brown University, Emory University, University of Georgia. and University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, Fort Valley University, they sent us off to become very well educated. And they would sell a cow or a bale of hay or whatever to help pay for the tuition, or we would get scholarships or whatever. But it was important to them that their children become educated, because they said no one can take your education away from you. And that was one of the number one things that was taught in the Black community. Everywhere you went, you got to get educated. You must be educated. And then the second thing was, of course, well, the number one thing was religion. You always went to church. Sometimes on Sunday you spent from 9 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening in church. That was a great big African-American tradition. You were going to church. And then on Wednesdays or Tuesdays you were going to church during the week. There was no option to that. You were going. And to have a good faith foundation. But the other thing they taught us was, for economics, is to own land. My daddy owned about 40 acres in one area and 10 or 20 acres in another area. Him and his brother owned 2 homes and all kinds of things. They said if you own property and pay your taxes, you always have a place to stay. You always have something that you can borrow against if you need something. So those were things that were in our rural Black community that was constantly taught, to have faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, to get a good education, and to own property. And we just fell in step because they gave us this as a background. So that's the reason I feel that, as I said earlier, that when we integrated the schools, we lost a lot of things. One of the things we lost was that community gatherings, because our teachers were the same people who went to church with us. And so we had a very close-knit community. And we lost that close-knitting, which was also important to the Black community, because now all our teachers were white. They lacked the knowledge of how to discipline African Americans, lacked the knowledge of how to encourage us and to promote the values that we felt that were important in our community, because they would wonder, why are those values important to you? That is not something you're supposed to have. So we had to carry on our traditions ourselves in our community, and usually we did that through our church. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about Black excellence that all cultures misunderstand. And I think there's a misconception of white excellence that all cultures misunderstand. Excellence in a community is not Venus or Serena Williams. I'm not saying they're not excellent in their field. Excellent not a Billy D. Williams, and I'm not saying he's not excellent in his field. Excellent is not a Denzel Washington, and I'm not saying he's not excellent in his field. President Barack Obama. I'm not saying he's not excellent in his fields. Those are excellence. But the major excellence in a community is a father and a mother raising their family together as a unit and helping the children to become productive members of the society. The African American Masons, who created a community where African Americans did not have insurance to bury their dead, so they would raise money to provide burial plots and to have the dead raised. They took care of the widows to make sure that they had food to eat and were taken care of. Black excellence and excellence in any community is a community that can pull together and become successful. Because if the least one fails, the whole community fails. And it's not just the outstanding ones. It's not the talented tenth. It's everyone who has become successful and contributed positively to their community. It's the Roper employee that does something like this and go to work every day and pay his bills. That's Black excellence.